Hierete Philimu, I am Sophocles of Cyzicus, your humble narrator for this most peculiar of origin stories, the miraculous and, dare I say, somewhat headache-inducing birth of Athena, Olympian goddess of wisdom, war, and fashionably late arrivals. Gather around the hearth, clutch your amphora of wine, and prepare yourselves for a tale brimming with thunder, hammers, and a pinch of comedic absurdity. It all began on a morning like any other atop Mount Olympus. The gods lazed in their clouds, nibbling ambrosia and debating which mortal playwright was most overrated. A heated argument that, I swear, lasted the better part of an eon. Suddenly, Zeus clutched his head and cried out, "By all the sticks, I have a migraine." His counselors, Hera polishing her peacock feathers, Apollo tuning his lyre, and Hermes checking his winged sandals for mold, looked on in alarm. "Father," Hera said sweetly, or as sweetly as a goddess married to a notorious philanderer could. "Perhaps it's indigestion from last night's hecatomb." But Zeus was already pacing, one hand pressed to his brow. "No, no, it is inside my skull," he groaned. "Something is stirring, and it's not a winged peanut." Now you must understand, the gods do not suffer mortals' malaise remedies. There is no chamomile tea for Zeus, no leech therapy for Apollo. When your head aches like a runaway chariot, you call on Hephaestus, the smith god with a penchant for anvils and very pointy hammers. Summoned by frantic lightning bolts, Hephaestus arrived in his fiery forge, wiping sweat-streaked soot from his brow. "You wanted me, boss," he rumbled, brandishing a hammer that could shatter mountains, or at least irreparably crack a godly skull. "Please," Zeus wheezed, "just open the door and let whatever's inside come out. Gentle as possible, mind you. I have a reputation to uphold." Hephaestus glanced at Zeus's enormous cranium, then back at his hammer. "Gentle," he repeated. "Right." With all the delicacy of a drunken cyclops, he raised the hammer and brought it down on Zeus's forehead with a sound like two crashing titans. Out flew a flash, brighter than Apollo's midday chariot, and a shockwave that straightened all the olives on Olympus. When the ringing in everyone's ears subsided, what stood before them was Athena. Clad in shining armor, with her spear in hand and an owl perched on her shoulder, she looked around, yawned once, and asked, "Is this where the symposium is?" Yes, dear audience. Born fully grown and battle-ready, Athena emerged from Zeus's skull as though she just stepped out of the finest armory in Hephaestus's forge. The other gods, still blinking soot from their eyes, stared in awe. Hera blinked twice, then muttered, "Well, I suppose that's one way to get out of childbirth pains," and returned to polishing her peacock feathers. Dionysus, ever one for revelry, declared, "Athena, you're just in time for the wine." But she merely shook her helmeted head and proclaimed, "First things first, who naps like this?" As if this spectacle weren't enough, the mortals below trembled. Rumor of the goddess's birth spread like wildfire through Sparta, Athens, and every polis with half a fig orchard. Potters abandoned their wheels, warriors dropped their spears, and philosophers paused mid-debate on whether shadows had shadows of their own. From the heights of Mount Olympus, Zeus pronounced, "Behold Athena, my daughter by no mother, but by wit and thunder." Apollo struck a dramatic chord on his lyre, though he soon retuned in annoyance. He'd misplaced his favorite pick in the mayhem. Artemis fired an arrow into the sky, purely for dramatic effect, and it exploded into a shower of confetti. She does love theatrics. But Athena's trials had only begun. She needed a realm of her own. Here's where my storyteller's bias shows. I contend that no deity ever aced a probationary period better than Athena. She tamed the first troublesome horse in Thessaly and lectured it on manners, invented the bridle and the flute, though Poseidon insisted it should be called the trident flute, and taught the mortals the art of weaving so that every Athenian maiden might stop wearing goatskins, and thus smell less goaty. Her crowning achievement, of course, was besting Poseidon in a municipal contest for the patronage of a little coastal town you've probably heard of, Athens. Poseidon struck the ground with his trident, producing a salty spring, which promptly dried up after a week. Athena, ever resourceful, planted an olive sapling that grew into a symbol of peace, prosperity, and perfectly seasoned salads. The citizens cheered, bestowed her name upon their city, and Poseidon sulked back to his sea palace, muttering about water rights. So what have we learned from this boisterous, brawny birth? First, that a headache can herald greatness, provided you have a divine blacksmith on speed dial. Second, that wisdom and war readiness can spring forth from the most unexpected places, even your father's forehead. And third, always carry a spare lyre pick, lest drunken arrows mix with your confetti. Now it's been whispered that Athena's owl, wide-eyed and ever-watchful, still perches on rooftops in Athens, hooting in approval whenever a clever idea strikes mortal minds. Some say she lectures government councils on strategy, while others insist she critiques pottery designs from Olympus's balcony. But I, Sophocles of Cyzicus, prefer to imagine her lounging in her gleaming armor, smirking at mortal dramas, and silently offering a thread of wisdom to any storyteller with the courage to spin her story. So raise your cups high to Athena, born of thunder, tempered by steel, and forever ready to school both gods and humans in the fine art of common sense, with a side of helmeted flair. Kali Orixi, and may your minds be ever sharp and your olives ever plump.